Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've had the chance to make another video, so I won't waste any more time. Let's get straight into this. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on building a PC specifically for using with Zwift. If you're already a Zwifter, then you know what I'm talking about. If you're a PC gamer and you've never heard of Zwift, I'll give a brief explanation shortly. But if you've come here for expert advice on how to build a PC, then this isn't the video for you. This is my first PC build and I've made lots of mistakes, so if you want advice from experts, there are plenty other YouTube channels for that. If, however, like me, you have never built a PC, perhaps because you use Apple Macs, then please keep watching. So if you already know what Zwift is, then please skip ahead about a minute or so. For those who have never heard of Zwift, it is both a cycling game and a cycling simulator, which allows real cyclists to ride in a virtual environment. By connecting a smart trainer, I'm not going to get into details here, you can send power, cadence and heart rate data to a device that animates your progress through virtual landscapes and ride alongside avatars of other real cyclists and compete against them if that's your thing. It also contains many elements found in computer games, something else I'm not an expert in, but you can gain experience or XP points to progress through levels, receive power-ups and bonuses, and use in-game currency to buy better equipment. You can use many devices such as phones, tablets, Apple TV, Macs and PCs, but to get the most immersive experience I started looking at a good sized Ultra HD television with a PC capable of running Zwift in 4K resolution. I actually started this project in December of 2018, but since then the Zwift Insider website, which is an excellent resource for Zwifters, published an in-depth article about building a PC for this specific purpose. One piece of advice that is very clear in the article is that Intel processors offer the best experience on Zwift. By sheer good fortune, I had chosen a Core i5 for this project for a couple of other reasons. Now I expect some people in the comments will still ask why didn't I choose a Ryzen processor, so I will return to this. There is a lot of other useful advice in this article that I wish had been available when I started this build, but let's go over some of the reasons behind my choices. Firstly, the case. It's an NZXT H500, which was a very reasonable £70 on Amazon, had some good reviews and had a nice minimalist look. Now the motherboard was the most difficult area for me, having no prior knowledge. I had to research what type of processor I wanted, which then dictated the type of socket. I then had to decide what features I wanted against how much I was willing to pay, and to be honest, I found the choice a bit overwhelming. I settled on a Gigabyte Z390UD, which seemed to offer enough options to allow me some upgrades and overclocking at a later date at a reasonable price. The power supply was also a minefield for me, but I got the impression that Corsair were a reliable brand, and I had read that I should give myself the option of a slightly more powerful supply than my components would need for later updates. The power supply I actually ordered wasn't in stock, so the dealer suggested this one, and I will return to the problem this caused in part 2 of this series. I thought RAM was going to be more straightforward, as I only really needed 16 gigs, and this Vengeance 3000MHz RAM was on special offer on Amazon. However, I ran into problems with the dual channel RAM once I'd installed Windows, which I will also return to. The SSD was by far the easiest decision. I had this spare terabyte Samsung SSD from some testing I'd been doing with my Synology NAS, so it was the no-cost option. Finally we come to the processor. I had chosen an Intel Core i5 8600K for a few reasons. Firstly, I had mistakenly assumed that only Intel offered integrated graphics, as I knew I wasn't going to be able to purchase a dedicated graphics card for a while. I'd never done any overclocking, but I wanted the option for that. And finally, I also wanted the option of Thunderbolt 3 connectivity. I understand there are Ryzen motherboards that offer this now, but I don't think this was an option at the time of this build. I also had to purchase a very cheap CPU cooler, as I mistakenly thought that the Intel processor included this in the box, which it doesn't on K-series chips apparently. This Arctic 7 was only £18, but allowed me to do some mild overclocking once the build had settled down. The build process itself wasn't that difficult. The CPU went straight into the socket, and there were coloured tabs to indicate the dual channel memory positions. The modular power supply was easy to fit, although I'm still not sure about the optimum position for the fan, top or bottom, and I've seen conflicting advice, so please feel free to discuss this in the comment section. The cooler was fairly easy to fit, although I wasn't keen on the plastic pegs that connect it to the motherboard. The radiator had thermal paste already applied, so all I needed to do was drop it in and tighten a couple of screws. Connecting the CPU fan was straightforward, but one thing I found slightly confusing with the other headers was that they were 4-pin connectors, and the other block connectors were only 3-pin, so I had to double check I was putting them in the right place. I also had a slight bit of difficulty getting all the sockets to line up with the holes in the I/O shield, but the case had the standoffs fitted in all the right places, so screwing the motherboard into the case was a breeze. And this was how the completed build looked at that stage. I left the GPU cable accessible on the bottom right for anyone wondering what that is. All I needed now was to get Windows installed. Gigabyte have actually changed the BIOS quite dramatically since I filmed this, but I was pleased to see that screen. I'd already created a USB flash drive with the Windows installer, so getting Windows onto the Samsung SSD was really easy. But I was finding that the PC would not boot with more than one memory stick connected. I initially thought that the motherboard did not support the 3000 MHz RAM sticks, so I eventually sent them back and replaced them with 2666 MHz sticks, but the problem persisted. After lots of Google searching, I decided to take a look at the CPU socket on the motherboard, and discovered that several of the pins were bent. And emails to Gigabyte support confirmed that this could have been the cause of my problems, so I returned it to Amazon and the replacement has worked flawlessly. So this was the completed build at that stage. Since then I've made a few additional upgrades, going from this to this. If you're interested in seeing part 2 in this series, when I will go into more detail about the upgrades, and also look specifically at the improvements each stage in this process has made to my experience on Zwift, then please consider giving this video a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.